Ho ho ho, it's UK Motor Talk, Christmas 2024.
Hello everyone and welcome to this festive edition of the UK Motor Talk Podcast. I'm Mike, hello.
I'm Jim, hello.
I'm Graham, hello.
And I'm Dave, hello, and happy almost Christmas.
Are we feeling festive yet? I'm not sure I am. I'm feeling cold, I know that much.
Yes.
But I suppose that is festive really, isn't it? It's the same thing.
I'm looking festive, plump.
You're looking very festive. that little gnome hat really suits you. Goes well with the beard.
I'm just fat, bearded, and I certainly know there'll be one fat bearded man visiting my house this Christmas. What's up, Dave? I've got to ask the question because you are not looking happy this evening.
Well, even more than usual. I think I've been the... I don't think. I know. I have been the victim of mistaken identity. So imagine my surprise and delight upon opening the post the other morning to discover the words "Notice of Intended Prosecution" at the top of the letter. Yeah, and having been the victim of one of those not so long before and realising my 3 years probation had barely been spent, that wasn't fun. But it was only when I pulled it further out the envelope, the letter, before anyone starts, that I spotted the name Warwickshire Police, at which point I thought, hang on a minute, I haven't been anywhere near Warwickshire for the best part of as long as I can remember. And then reading further down...
children, is why geography is important.
Indeed it is. It pays to know where you've been, even if you do rely completely on sat-nav, as we all seem to these days. Reading further, I thought... oh joy, my car's been cloned, and realised that I'd best get on with it pretty quick. So reading further down, it's, send us photos if you want to dispute this. If it's not you, send us photos of your car telling us why you think you're not the lucky winner of 3 points and £100 fine. At which point I did. And then it was only after having got in touch with my local police force, because I've been the victim of car cloning before, and getting a crime reference number just to be on the safe side, that I thought, hang on a minute, I'm doing this on the letter. If I go online, I might actually see some photos of me not doing what I'm supposed to have done. So I did, went online and found a white Skoda. Mine's a metallic beige, God help us. A white Skoda with one digit transposed at the end. Very, very different. Mine ends in DU. This one ends in DO. And evidently either the machine that reads the thing hadn't read it properly, or the person checking the machine hadn't bothered. And so I wrote a blistering letter, sent it off with my 6th photo.
Yes, sir.
Exactly, yours of Tunbridge Wells. It wasn't quite the Thunderer, but you know what I mean. It was. I was polite but to the point. And sent it off registered as well. And in a couple of days, terribly sorry, don't know how this has happened. And at which point I also said, can I have this in writing, please? Because emails have a habit of going missing, even though you've told me in an email, it wasn't you. Yes, we know it wasn't you. And somebody's going to get a rocket for this. I want it in writing, black and white, in paper. We'll get that out to you. About a month later, I'm still waiting. So if anyone from Warwickshire Camera Safety Partnership is listening, could I have my letter, please? Because I really, really don't want to be pulled over. Thank you.
But that's not good, is it? I mean, you're technologically literate, so you had the sense and wherewithal to go online and look at the picture and obviously contest, and you know your geography, so you know where you have and haven't been. Mm-hmm. Would everybody think to do that? I'm not sure they would, to be honest, and especially if you're, hang on, I did go that way for kind of, I was on the way there, I suppose it was me. How many people are just saying yes to this? And of course, by it being sent to you first, and then however long the delay is getting it in the post, sending it back, blah, 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 they've then, of course, missed the deadline to send a notice of intended prosecution to the actual driver, the actual offending motorist, because it's too late and they've left it too long by prattling around writing to you. So it's not good, is it? But like you say, is this a human failing or a technological failing?
I doubt we'll ever know.
I'm intrigued that you were able to gain access to photos, because I discovered some years ago that Sussex Police, and I suspect that many other police forces are the same, unless you're actually in court or at the point of going to court, they won't release the photos, any photos, even if you're trying to defend yourself.
That's interesting.
Everything I've had in the past, because we tend to get a few of these from work, where delivery drivers are picking cars up from us or delivering cars to us on behalf of other people, and it's they tend not to know the roads and where the cameras are, and of course it bounces around the system, ends up with us, and it's always far too late. But I always say, no, it was, picked up from us an hour beforehand, so there's the driver leaving the site. But they generally always send us pictures or give you the ability to go online.
Yeah, there were no pictures in the actual print copy that I got, which was why I initially sort of went off the deep end and went to Surrey Police and went, oh, somebody's cloned my car, because that's what they tell you to do, is tell your local police force, and it's good advice. But it was only afterwards I thought, hang on a minute, there's a link here. I'm going to click on that. Through the red mist, it subsided by that point a little bit. I thought, let's go and have a look at the photos and see what I'm supposed to look like. And no, very much it wasn't. Obviously, I must have come from the same dealer. This is quite interesting, actually, seeing a car that was probably on the same forecourt, if not sort of on the same trailer that week. But in this occasion, not me, Governor. Very much a different car, as I pointed out in my to-the-point letter.
Oh yeah, would have been from the same dealer, because we had work, one of our company cars. I got a random email from the insurance company regarding an accident one of our cars had had. I was like, have any of our cars had an accident? Oh yeah, your Mercedes registration, blah blah blah. J-Lo was the end of the registration. Involved in an accident. What road? Such and such road. Where the bloody hell's that? Aberdeen. Glenn, were you in Aberdeen last week? No. Was your mum in Aberdeen last week? So apparently the driver gave their name as Julie, which is Glenn's mum's name. I was like, did your mum borrow your car and drive to Aberdeen last week and crash it? And he's like, no, why? And it's like, the insurance company think that it happens. Yeah, but I said, no, not us, no idea what you're on about. But then we had to send photographic evidence. It's like, okay, here's me not having a crash. What do you mean?
Notice my feet up on the sofa.
Yeah, that's it. I'm currently not crashing. But again, the photographic evidence is always a weird thing. We've had to fill in the odd thing. Oh, such and such was missing from the delivery or from the box or whatever. So send us a picture. So I just send a picture of my hand. So here's me not holding the thing that wasn't in the box because it's not there, so I can't hold it. Oh, okay, yes, that's fine. We'll send you another one.
You'll be, because it's local to, really all of us, pretty much. The camera on let me think about this, the east side of the bridge over the railway lines in Worthing. And I had a major row a few years ago now, when they were prosecuting me for driving northbound on a camera that couldn't possibly see me because it was on the wrong side of the road. And so it turned out they'd prosecuted lots of people. And I took it to court, and they then had to do a large number of refunds because that camera was only cited for traffic going the opposite direction, i.e. southbound, and I was going northbound, and that was not a camera that was correctly placed to record speeds on both sides of the road.
See, I think that would have come in handy a while ago, because I think that camera, the first day it was put in, my mum drove past it, but had no idea what a speed camera was. It just merrily drove past it, got flash, didn't think anything of it, drove home, flash, drove in the next day, flash, and then she'd gone from having no points, no nothing in the space of ages to getting 9 points in the space of a day and a half. So, yeah, there we go. Bless her.
I did see that someone got caught, a police force identified a car coming the other way was speeding, and they had a picture of the driver, and it was the Cookie Monster. Did anyone else see this in the news? I had no idea who it was that's done it, but was dressed completely as the Cookie Monster. I absolutely love that.
That's the way to do it.
That's why it pays to delete your cookies.
Ho.
Oh, I got a brown letter this week from the DVLA saying, and to be honest, I was caught bang to right in theory, because as you probably know if you've been listening to the podcast, I put a different engine in my car this year, a 2-litre engine, and that changed the tax class, which I tried to change with the DVLA, but they wouldn't let me change both the things at once. So they sent me a letter saying, you've changed the engine, which is correct because I'd done that and registered it, and we would like some more money, please, because you haven't paid the right amount of tax, which is fair enough. So I did that, duly paid the tax. I said, yes, that's fair enough. I need to pay you some tax. Thank you for letting me do that now. That's very kind of you. Can I have a receipt, please? And they said, no, actually. Good. if you write to your case handler, they'll say that that it's all cancelled. Right. Good. Thanks. So I've paid some money to somebody down the end of a phone line at the DVLA, and hopefully that's all gone away now.
No, you haven't. You've been scammed. Somebody's been listening to the podcast and they've tracked you down and said, "Good afternoon, Mr. Gates. I'm calling from the Douvla." Did they identify themselves as from the Douvla or from the DVLA?
They identified themselves as from the Welsh Valleys, so I suspect there's a good chance they might be from the DVLA, but yeah, I'm not sure.
Somebody in Swansea's had a few points on you.
Yeah, indeed. Great, I've just paid for the Christmas party.
This is courtesy of a nice man down on the south coast. Thank you very much, Mr. Gates. You've been lovely.
Oh, that's a very deep Welsh accent, that is.
Oh, there's lovely.
You know, I just have no idea, but tax has got to the point of being so expensive. I reckon I've paid about 1,300 quid in tax this year, road tax.
You do have a lot of cars.
You do have a lot of cars. Yes, that seems like a self-inflicted problem, doesn't it?
And they're all quite silly for emissions as well, aren't they? So
They are. And what makes matters worse is I started, having seen the latest coming from Jaguar, it made me go onto the internet and start looking at things like XFRs. I go, I quite fancy one of those. And of course they are ruinous for tax because they fit into the top bracket of, you've got a 5 litre and it's supercharged. But because of that, the cars themselves are relatively well priced. So why not?
They killed off the F-Type this year as well, didn't they, to make room for strange things that are coming out of the new future for Jag. So I don't know if that means that F-Types particularly are going to sort of get more expensive because people are going to covet them, particularly in the light of what Jaguar have in store for us in the future, or whether that means they're going to get cheaper, and because they're not exactly thin on the ground, are they? And they're very, very pretty cars. I think we're going to look at that as probably one of the last of the classic-looking Jags, really. I'm still undecided.
I saw a few bits that after the furore, shall we say, over the rebranding and then the teaser for the new model, that searches for old Jaguars went up by %, and sales of the old ones have increased, and second-hand values have suddenly shot up because everybody's thinking, I better buy one of those before. So again, is there a little bit of cynicism creeping in here to say, well, just launch a load of stuff, no such thing as bad publicity, generate some interest in the older ones? But then I don't know, I kind of think how many of us actually bought cars like that when they were available new? Not many. So is that part of the reason they've just had to rip it all up because this isn't working, so we've either need to do something else or we die? And if we die doing something else, then it doesn't really matter because we're going to die anyway, so give it a go and see what happens,
Go out in a blaze of pink.
Yeah, that's it. Actually, the colour blue was quite nice, and actually, looking at the concept, I quite like that. It looks a little bit cartoonish and a little bit villainous, so I quite liked it.
It's got a bit of Cruella de Vil 21st century company car about it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to have a frunk in it that's going to be twice as big as most estate cars' boots if the proportions are actually correct. I'm not quite sure the bonnet needed to be that long, but it looks good, doesn't it?
It's only a concept car at the end of the day, isn't it?
I thought it was all about aerodynamics with such vehicles. It's got the aerodynamics of a brick. It's bloody awful at the front.
I don't know. The front, I think, is probably the least well resolved. But as a concept car, and a piece of shock and awe, literally everyone and their mums are talking about Jaguar, aren't they, at the moment? You can't open a newspaper. It's everywhere.
Done for the PR department, definitely.
Definitely is. Whether or not I necessarily agree with the weird advertising, it certainly has brought out the bigots. But that aside, I just didn't really get it. I think the car itself, as a concept, and let's face it, this isn't going to be the production car, this is a concept car, is quite interesting. Whether or not they're right to shun their existing customer base, and they want to retain apparently 15% of the existing customer base and move it younger.
That's a fantasy in itself. How do you retain 15% specifically of your previous customer base? You don't, because you just pick them all off.
Well, 15% of them buy another one.
Anybody with any respect for the brand will probably just go elsewhere.
I'm not quite sure of the cohesiveness of everything at the moment, because at least it's not another SUV, so that's good. So I think that appeals
Yes.
to the older Jaguar buyers, because let's face it, SUVs are just all a bit boring and a bit dull. So
It's played
a
out.
non-SUV is good news, and Jaguar are not particularly an SUV brand, so that's good news. The thing is, though, the advert and the woke type way that they've gone with it, aiming at the younger generation. Are the younger generation really the sort to spend £100,000 plus on a really big, long, weird-looking saloon that's slightly phallic in its proportions? Not really. Are the old gammony Jaguar buyers of the past really going to want to buy one of those newfangled EV bits of nonsense? No, probably not. So they are kind of in between a rock and a hard place, that the old buyers won't want the new powertrain. So what do you do?
I did see one comment from somebody in their PR department that, okay, it's a big car, but then they like big cars in the Middle East. They like big cars in China. I remember Rolls-Royce offering exactly the same raison d'etre for making the car, the original of the current iteration of Rolls-Royces, as big as it was, because they weren't concerned about the UK market. They weren't particularly concerned about the US market. The money was in China, the money was in India, the money was in the Middle East.
Yeah, it probably is.
It's the same people buying Rolls-Royce Black Editions, isn't it? It's the people that sort of like that. I don't care what it looks like. It looks wicked to me, mate, innit? And there we go. It's got big wheels on it, and I've completely murdered out me Cullinan, which should never have been made in the first place. I mean, that's got similar looking proportions at the front, isn't it, to your Jag? They are repositioning themselves to be a Rolls-Royce competitor, aren't they? Albeit perhaps not quite so eye-wateringly expensive, but
It's
they
half the
want
price.
that. They want that cliff edge front end. Lo and behold, we can do this. Rolls-Royce can do it. We're another British band. The thing that cheapens it for me is whoever designed the new badge. Basically, they've taken a 12-year-old from art school and gone, can you just do a J and just put a J in it somewhere? As long as it's gold, it doesn't matter. A J. If you can make it look upside down as well with another J, that'd look well cool. Yeah, that'd be wicked, mate. Phone it in. Jobs are good. It looks like some sort of thing that you would see adorning a clothing brand for 12-year-olds. It's
It's a bit
cheap
Comic
enough.
Sans, isn't it?
Even I could come up with better than that, and I cannot draw to save my life.
If you look at it as a half-price Rolls-Royce, similar proportions, similarly imperious and imposing, I do agree with the Comic Sans style font. That just, it looks like it could be on any product, to be honest with you. It looks like the kind of thing that you might buy from Ann Summers. Where can I buy one of them? And how long does it take to
come
recharge?
with batteries?
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. I don't think that in the UK, at least, people of the age that they're aiming for have that 100 grand. Is it going to be China? Is it going to be Dubai? Are those the places where they're going to sell it? Probably.
Weird thing to say, but does the UK market actually matter, or does it matter as much as before?
No.
Probably not. Where's the
Matters
money?
not a jot.
Chase the money.
Given that in the last couple of years we've been making movies of the sort of annual event of the Rolls-Royce Enthusiast Club, I cannot actually envisage any of those current Rolls-Royce owners buying a car like the new Jaguar.
But would they buy an EV anything?
Probably not. There are those that are technically willing enough to go the EV route. I don't think that's the major problem. It's just the look of the bloody thing.
See, I would say that for a Rolls-Royce, an electric powertrain makes a lot of sense because it's about
It does.
smoothness, and it makes...
They're good on the company car tax as well. I have been browsing company car replacements this week. The Rolls-Royce does keep cropping up because it's not bad value per month on the old benefiting kind. It's certainly better than a pickup truck from next year.
If you want that smoothness, that torque, and that power in reserve, EV does work quite well. And assuming they can sort the range out and make it charge really quickly, I mean, 430 miles is what they're targeting for the range. I think that seems okay to me.
It's probably going to be quite a comfy place to sit whilst you're charging
Yeah.
up as well, isn't it?
And the thing is, although you say, would the people that buy those Rolls Royces, would they buy that Jaguar? I admire the Rolls Royce. I think they're a lovely, beautiful thing. But if I had the money and means to buy a Rolls Royce, I don't think I would, because it doesn't feel right to me. Would I perhaps treat myself to a Jaguar if it had a similar sort of shape, that sort of the haunches that you got from the F-Type? I think it's interesting how they've deleted their history and are happy to actively not sell cars to people, but yet they still seem to have elements of previous Jaguars in there. And I think if you look at, say, the rear arches particularly, it is very F-Type. And if you look at it top down, it does look very feline. And it does, that part of it to me looks Jaguar. Would I buy one if I had the means? Probably more likely to buy that than buy the Rolls-Royce, I would say.
I think Rolls-Royce is, I found from bitter experience in the past, that they have to pass the bus queue sneer test. Because if you're pulled up in a queue of traffic and everybody in the bus queue is sneering because you're in a Rolls-Royce, then maybe you're in the wrong car or in the wrong job, or your skin's simply not thick enough.
Yes, maybe that. I mean, would it worry me if I could hear people shouting through the double glazed windows of my Rolls Royce? I mean, I might be sad, but I'd be sad sat in my Rolls Royce. So I wouldn't
say you'd be quite happily being driven around, and you'd be having a beer or two in the back, or a glass of champagne or whatever, and you'd be too to care, really, couldn't you? So
yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about what people waiting for a bus think ever. The overriding rule always is buy a car for you, not for anybody else.
And
Agreed.
if you've got a Rolls Royce, pull the curtains anyway, so you don't even have to look at the hoi polloi.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, anyway, I think we should move it on a little bit as time is marching on. Normally it would be an F1 review from me, but it's kind of an Abu Dhabi weekend, really, sort of continuing the trail of inadequacy and misorganisation that is the FIA. We had Formula Academy. So we had the F1 Academy, which is the female-only series, which we had a race weekend a couple of weekends ago. And Abby Pulling sort of cleaned up for the weekend, as she is wont to do over the course of the season, continuing to impress and looking like maybe an F1 test beckons in the not-too-distant future, and good luck to her. But because of the way these championships and race series tend to work, if at any point in a season you amass a championship points lead greater than the number of points available, which they work out by looking at the number of races and sessions and points on offer, you become the champion.
Sounds reasonable.
Last time out, a couple of weekends ago, Abby Pulling duly did. She had an 84-point lead with 70-something points left, so she was duly crowned the champion and all the celebrations that followed, etc. And then a few days later, the FIA said, actually, we had to cancel a race because I don't know what happened in the run-up to it. I think there was a Porsche race. There was an accident. They'd smashed and ripped the barriers to pieces, and the repairs took so long they had to cancel the F1 Academy race. But in the last race of the weekend, she got enough points and became champion. So they said, we didn't run all the races we should have done last time, so we're going to run an extra race next weekend at Abu Dhabi. Right. So that means her points lead that was 84 points or whatever it was, all of a sudden there were 85 points on offer for the whole weekend, so she wasn't the champion. But then you get points for pole position. In the first qualifying session, she put it on pole by an absolute country mile, so was therefore the champion again. So I think it would be nice to look back in the history books to see if anybody's ever been crowned champion twice in the same year for the same thing. Because that's, I know we've had plenty of champions in one series and then another, and, Mansell was, I think, the only chap to hold the Indy champion and F1 world champion at the same time, but I think to be crowned champion of the same thing twice in 1 year, that's pretty impressive. So congratulations to Abby Pulling, two-time F1 Academy champion. Very well done to you. It was a good weekend in the F1 as well, wasn't it? There was thrills and spills and crashes and smashes, and congratulations to McLaren as well for winning the Constructors' Championship. So a local team to some of us. So I think that was a good reward. I think most people actually, possibly apart from Ferrari, came away from this year, I think, reasonably chuffed with everything they've got. I mean, Verstappen with the Drivers' Championship, McLaren seemed certainly chuffed to monkeys to win the Constructors' Championship. Gasly managed to get into the top 10, Alpine got some points, Haas did well, Sauber got off the nil point scores eventually last time round, so I think everybody sort of seemed in a fairly good mood at the end of the F1, which is pretty good for Abu Dhabi actually, but I think we probably shouldn't talk about that a few years ago. So it was overall an interesting weekend.
Well, as the lapsed McLaren and Formula One fan amongst us, I had to stop and actually check using an actual real calculator when I discovered that it was 28 or 26 years since McLaren
26.
last 26. There you go. That's how shocked I was. I couldn't even remember. Since they
That's
last won the
long
constructors.
time.
How the hell is
for McLaren?
1998?
That is a long time, isn't it? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but I mean, just practically speaking, how is it almost 30 years ago that it was 1998? Seems like yesterday. I'm getting old, but yes, that's for McLaren
had
particularly.
Plenty of wins, and what drivers have they had since 1998? They've had
Some
Montoya,
pretty good ones.
Raikkonen, Hamilton, Alonso, Button, Alonso. No, how many times have they had Alonso? Only twice. But you think they've had some bloody good drivers over the years, haven't they? But then it's I think it shows just how crushingly dominant Mercedes and Red Bull have been of late that it hasn't happened. Obviously, 2007 and a bit of photocopying and whatever else we won't dwell on. But it's I think it shows in the. It was quite nice to see Lewis sign off his Mercedes career in style as well, with a decent drive from 18th, having trapped his bollards at some point over the weekend. I mean, a bollard over the weekend. That was a good fight back to finish fourth. It would have been good to see him on the podium. Actually, I was quite wanting that to happen, but it was one thing I did see that was quite interesting. He's always famous for his outfits that he wears when he's walking into the paddock, and the outfit he was wearing on the first day was silver. On the second day, it was silver with red trousers, and on the last day, it was all red. So it was quite nice to see the transition from silver to red over the course of the weekend as well. And so it's I'm quite excited for next year, to be honest. I mean, if we get a start to 2025 like we had an end to 2024, I think we're in for a cracking season next year, aren't we? With Red Bull sort of in complete and utter chaos, and occasionally brilliant, occasionally awful, and Verstappen getting wound up and shouting at people and calling the stewards silly idiots, etc. Lewis in a Ferrari, Mercedes will be where they are, McLaren looking like the formed team, Newey maybe making an impact at Aston Martin. There could be 5 teams fighting for this next year.
Yeah, 25 could be a very interesting season, and certainly Mr. Norris has already decided he wants to be champion next year. I think he earned it this year, but it didn't happen. 1 or 2 mistakes along the way.
I think I'd like him to be. There's something that's just so likeable about Lando, isn't there? There really is. And I was reading an article as to why people sort of fall for Lando in a way that they don't fall for George Russell. And not necessarily because of what he does on track, but I think there's something about Lando's personality that just makes him hugely likeable, isn't there? I think people then root for him.
Maybe more relatable, and maybe I think just more the memes he comes out with and his sort of banter with his race engineer and stuff like that. I think, because friend of the podcast, George, and it's there's always the two personalities, that the way they can come across on the radio or in the heat of battle, and the way they are away from the circuit and whatever else. You often hear anybody who worked with Michael Schumacher just said he was the nicest, kindest, most down-to-earth, most human person ever. People said that about Senna, the way he cared about people. But, lots of people say it about Esteban Ocon at the moment, that off the track he's the kindest, most lovely, gentle bloke. He puts a helmet on, he turns into an absolute psychopath. So there's always that kind of thing, that comparison to draw. But I think, George is maybe a bit more matter of fact, and is maybe just sort of the words he uses and things like that, whereas little examples like a radio check, George would be like, radio check, okay, 1 2 3, okay, test, okay, whereas Lando Norris's radio check is radio check, Lando, and he'll start singing, it's Friday then, it's Saturday, Sunday, what? And they both do the same thing, as in the radio check has been accomplished, but it's just the way he does it. And then you'll see him, he's sat in the car on the grid and he's just bouncing up and down, and he's just vibing, he's in his own world sometimes. And I think it just maybe comes across a bit more casual with it all. So, but I think he's learned a lot, but I think his performance at Abu Dhabi was right, okay, I think I've got the hang of this. I now know what I need to do. So let's have a practice for next year. And you saw that. I think this weekend we've seen that switch flick. You saw it with Vettel in his Toro Rosso and Red Bull days. You just suddenly saw that light bulb. Oh no, I've got the hang of this now. Yep, I know what I'm doing. And off they go. They just find another gear and off they go. They disappear. So 1 higher for Lando next year, but it should be a good scrap.
Well, of course, this wouldn't be our festive Christmas podcast without talking about Christmas. So I want to know, guys, what's on your Christmas list, whether it be interesting, exciting, boring, or just downright childish. Come on, tell me. Have you got anything out there that's motoring related or maybe just a present for your car?
I actually haven't got a clue this year, to be honest. Some people have asked, and it's like, I think, get the windscreen surround for the Caterham powder coated. But I don't know, it's not a. I don't think our local powder coating chap does gift vouchers, does he? You just sort of drop it down there and have a chat, and off you go again. So yeah, I don't think they do gift vouchers, but that's awfully geeky, isn't it? I'm not quite sure you give that for Christmas. So, but anyway, that's what I'd like for my car this year.
I was thinking of sort of present recommendations rather than just for me, because my expectations will always exceed my disposable cash. Coming back to Jaguars as we were, but. At one end of the sort of price spectrum, a scraper, because anybody that insists on doing it with their credit card's a bloody idiot. But at the other end, a breakdown cover, which is the best money I think you can spend and seems to be getting better and better value. So whether it
might be for you.
RAC, I mean, for anybody, I think breakdown cover's the best insurance you could have.
Graham, you drive a Volvo. What are you doing that needs breakdown cover in a Volvo?
Stop breaking it.
For example, having had a puncture recently, which was very damaging to the tyre, and I found I couldn't lift the bloody thing. Now, I know I have a number of years on all of it.
Solid block of granite.
Indeed so. It weighed a ton, and I could not manage it on my own anymore. Much to my frustration.
Yes, use the jacks. Yeah, you can't lift the whole car.
Well, I'd have called upon the ghost of Jeff Capes if I'd known he was nearby. But the sort of thing he used to do.
Likes hernias. I know you can't.
He drove the fastest milk float in the West, didn't he? Well, no, I think any breakdown service is good value for money. So if you want to give somebody a useful gift, give them that.
Fair enough.
Go on, Dave. Anything for you?
Well, I've just put the link in the WhatsApp chat. It's something I've seen posted around on various things. I don't do a lot of the socials, but this does keep coming up, and it really sort of tickled me, this thing. It's a personalised jerry can power bank charger. So, anyone who's got a phone these days, it looks really cool, this thing. I mean, you'll know if you've got an iPhone in particular or a smartphone of any type these days, you'll be more than familiar with the concept of taking an extra power bar with you just in case. And people are coming up with all sorts of clever designs for these things now. And this one comes in the design of a jerry can, and you can have it with a flag of whatever nation you wish. There's probably some that you probably be wise not to have on there, depending on where you're planning on going around the world. But for 50 quid, I just thought this looks quite good. It's a lot of money for a power bank. I wouldn't spend anywhere near that. But if you know someone who's really into their cars and has a massive iPhone who is constantly on it, then I think this is probably the gift for them. But for me personally, I think the red Lancia Delta Integrale that I saw on Auto Trader earlier, only 99,995, and it's only done 40,000 miles. MReg, it's an Evo 2, perfect spec. I think that's the one. Yeah, that'd do me.
That's not a bad Christmas present as they go, is it? Whenever I get my once a month email from the National Lottery telling me that I've won a prize, and I eagerly log on to see that I've won yet another £5 or a lucky dip or whatever it is. I'll tuck all those fivers to one side for the next as long that I'll be alive, and I'll save up for you there. But if I get a proper lottery win, then send us a link. I'll buy you that.
Oh, you're very kind.
I think my entirely impossible but desirable gift, personally for me, would be for Bernie to say, well, before I auction them all off, pick anyone. You can have any one of them. Because I would have any one of them.
Well, you definitely would, wouldn't you? I've seen some quite cool stuff this year. If you some people just insist on buying socks. I've seen some that says on the left foot, clutch kick, and on the right, never lift, which I quite like. I've actually asked for a few car-related things this year. I say loosely. I've gone through a bit of a sort out of the garage finally. Now the car is mostly done, and I've just got my long snagging list to do bits to sort it out. But nevertheless, I decided
I need to give that a wash for you as well. I've been offering for about the last 2.5 years,
Yes.
3 years to give it a wash for you, like a
I'll
proper
bring it in,
wash
we
and a
can-
polish and a whatever else. But
I think we're going to wet sand it, aren't we? Because it's never been wet sanded from when it came out of paint. It's literally just as it was. It was never
I'll
flatted
quite
back.
happily take a bit of sandpaper to your pride.
Oh, let's do
go
that.
for it.
Yeah, let's
Why
do
not?
that. Yeah, why not? What's there to lose? But I've racked out the garage, courtesy of Papa Gates, and he's been through his selection of spare bits of wood and made me out of oak a rack for all my car cleaning bits and polishes. And I've actually asked for an extra bracket type thing to hang my polisher on, so that it's all on the wall and all looks nice and neat. And that kind of stuff excites me as a man approaching middle age.
Approaching?
37, I think, is approaching middle age, isn't it? I don't.
Approaching, yeah, but the way you're going, you're not going to make double that age, are you? Let's
I'm
be
going to need
honest.
breakdown cover.
Exactly.
Yes, what I have asked for is an Apple CarPlay screen. Now, Apple CarPlay head units and bits always used to be absolutely ridiculously expensive, and to change the head unit in the car is usually quite expensive. But you can buy just the screen, so 7 to 10 inch, whatever size you like, really, like a sat nav that can either stick to the windscreen or sit on the top of the dash, and then it transmits via Bluetooth or via FM into the car, so you can have CarPlay working, so you can listen to your favourite podcasts. You're welcome. Or you can also, I don't know, have your Apple Maps or whatever you want to have up on the screen, which I thought would be quite excellent. So what I've decided to do is I've bought one that's the same size as the tape cassette rack in the Onion, and I'm going to ask a friend to 3D print me a surround that's going to sit behind the tapes. So when it's at shows and things, I can put the tapes back in the front, and when I'm driving to them, I can take those out. It will broadcast in FM to my stereo, so that I can then listen to my music in the wonderful quality that my 80s stereo allows. But nevertheless, I'll also be able to make Bluetooth calls and all the rest of it, and then tuck it all out the way. When the screen's off, you won't see it at all. So a little bit of a resto mod. And these things are available from 40 or 50 quid. So if you are
they're silly cheap, aren't they?
Really
You think
good
about
value.
How expensive these things were when we started driving, or I started, right? You know, somebody had you'd have upgraded your head unit to CD or mini disc or whatever it was, and you'd have spent, the best part of a month's wages on, part-time wages, admittedly, on this thing, and you were the envy of everyone, and you were saving up forever and a day to put that, tech, not even a patch on that. Whereas now, if you wanted to put a big screen, a rear view camera, and this, that, the other, in your older car, it would only cost you a couple of £100, wouldn't it?
These have rear view camera compatibility as well. I forgot to mention that. So yeah, it just has a button.
Oh, so if I got one for the 7, then obviously the speaker, the sound would be kind of null and void, but I could have a rear view camera in the Caterham, such as you need it. You sort of turn around, if you can touch it with your arm when you reach out the back, then you've hit it. But yeah,
well, yeah, you've got that, and then you've also then got your Apple Maps and bits and pieces, which of course are updated all the time, or Google Maps or whatever it is your particular choosing is. It seems like a great idea, and a lot of cars which are, I don't know, probably middle-aged now, cars that are sort of 10, 15 years old, will still have Bluetooth in, but not have anything else. Some of them, if you think, I don't know, Mark 7 Fiesta, so the type that was around from, 2008 onwards, a lot of those had Bluetooth, but didn't have a screen for having that kind of stuff. Rather than having to cut your dash up, because they've got an integrated stereo that you can't do much with, have one of those. Why not? And of course, if it's one that goes on a sucker, you can take it from car to car if you're fortunate enough to have more than one. And if your car comes from the 80s or 90s, then great, you can just use the FM bit. So I saw that and thought that would be excellent. So that is the next stage for me in my resto modding on the Onion, is to add that in. I'm quite excited about that. So that's on my list of Father Christmas.
good choice. But I think, well, that's probably about it from us this year, I think, isn't it? So we're going to toddle off for our Christmas break now, and then we've got bits to look forward to next year. I think one of the lads at work wanted to book a track day at Anglesey fairly soon, didn't he? So if we do that in sort of January or February, then the weather can only be glorious in Anglesey in February, can't it? So I'm sure that'll end.
It's always warm there.
Yes, it
never
is.
windy.
No, not at all. You never see a tent blowing around, do you? Because they're all in the sea. That's it. You never see them blowing around on land, just in the sea. So I think, we're going to go and do that. What else we got? Autosport International is January as normal, isn't it? And again, that'll be Birmingham in January, so that'll be nice and warm, won't it? So yeah, it'll be shorts and t-shirt weather by the time we get round to that. Well, we won't need the big coat at all, will we?
And it's been nearly 2 years since I last bought a car, so it must be time to be thinking about that now.
I'll tell you what, should we go halves on that slightly ropey Aston with various bumper body panel bits hanging off it and missing sensors that they said, but we can do all the repairs for you for only £1,500. It's like, so why not just do them and put it up for £1,600 more than you were going to charge, and then the car doesn't look like a bag of crap. So yeah, let's go and buy a ropey Aston between us over Christmas, just to set us off on firm financial footing for the new year.
And there you go. So if you want to just randomly throw money our way, you can do that. You can visit my OnlyFans. Not really. Anyway, on that note, I guess a very Merry Christmas, and we look forward to seeing you in the new year.
Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year to all of our listeners, viewers, and any other way you want to contact us. You're very welcome. Keep in touch.
And we are UK Motor Talk. We are at UK Motor Talk everywhere.
And a final thank you to you all, gentlemen, for rambling away throughout this year. It's been a cathartic pleasure, as always, and thank you to our dear listeners for listening to our slightly odd ramblings as well. We hope you've enjoyed, or at least tolerated. We'll see you next year. Happy New Year and all that nonsense.
I'd just like to point out that Lancia Delta Integrales are for life, not just Christmas. And my bank account number is...
A very Merry Christmas from everyone at UK Motor Talk and First Take Media. See you in 2025.